Heavy tires crunched against the wet gravel. It was past midnight. The mountain road was pitch black. Thick, freezing fog rolled through the dark trees. A massive transport truck drove slowly up the steep, winding hill. It approached a heavily guarded gate. This was supposed to be a maximum security prison. It held the most dangerous and wealthy criminal in the entire world. Real military soldiers with heavy black rifles stood outside in the cold. But they did not stop the truck. They did not search the back. They looked down at the mud. They pretended to see absolutely nothing. The heavy steel gates slowly opened. The huge truck rolled inside the prison walls. The back doors finally swung open. But there were no basic prison supplies inside. There were no dirty uniforms or cheap food. Beautiful women in expensive party dresses stepped out into the cold night air. Heavy wooden boxes of extremely expensive whiskey were unloaded. Famous musicians carefully carried their acoustic guitars. This was not a strict prison. It was a massive, illegal, multi-million-dollar party, and it happened every single weekend. How did a highly guarded government prison turn into the wildest, most secret nightclub on Earth? But this didn't start here. To understand how trucks full of women and alcohol entered a maximum security prison, you have to look at the man in charge. His name was Pablo. He was a ruthless billionaire. He controlled the streets of Colombia. He had a massive illegal empire. His power was completely unmatched. But power always brings terrible enemies. The government wanted him locked away. The United States wanted him sent to an American prison. He was completely terrified of this. The pressure was constantly crushing him. His police were hunting his men. His enemies were hunting his family. His wife was stuck hiding in safe houses down in the city. She missed a normal life. She felt trapped. Pablo was deeply tired of running in the dark. He needed a brilliant plan to save his life. But that was only the beginning. Before we go deeper, make sure you're subscribed. We post stories like this every day. Pablo went to the leaders of the government. He offered them a completely insane deal. He said he would finally surrender. He would put down his weapons. He would serve a full 5 years in prison. But he had one massive demand. He refused to go to a normal state prison. He demanded to build his own prison. He would pick the perfect location. He would design the building. He would even choose the guards who watched the doors. The government was incredibly desperate. The country was tired of extreme violence. People just wanted peace. The leaders swallowed their heavy pride. They actually agreed to his wild demands. What happened next shocked everyone. In 1991, Pablo surrendered. He moved into his brand new home. It was called La Catedral, the cathedral. It was built high on a beautiful green mountain looking over his home city of Medellin. The government promised the public that this was a highly secure facility. They told the media it was a real punishment. The security was designed in 2 separate rings. The outside ring was controlled by the real military. They stood in the cold fog. They held big guns. They guarded the main road. But the inside ring was totally different. The inside ring belonged entirely to Pablo. The guards inside the prison wore official uniforms, but they were not real guards. They were Pablo's personal hitmen. They were his most loyal soldiers. They took their orders directly from him. He had absolute power. His massive ego was fed every single day. He built a natural waterfall inside the walls. He built a giant gym. He built a massive football field. He had a beautiful hot tub overlooking the city lights. It was a golden cage. He was completely safe from his enemies. He was completely safe from the police. But he had no idea what was coming. Pablo was a man who loved excess. He hated being bored. Being safe was not enough for him. He wanted to be entertained. Very quickly, the quiet mountain prison turned into a loud playground. Pablo decided he wanted to throw parties, but he could not leave the prison. If he walked past the outer fence, the peace deal was totally broken. The military would arrest him for real. So he brought the parties to the prison. It started completely in secret. Every Thursday night, Pablo made a few phone calls on his secure radio. He gave specific orders to his men down in the bright city. They hired large transport trucks. They bought hundreds of bottles of premium alcohol. They cooked massive feasts of lobster, steak, and caviar. They hired the most famous singers and bands in the entire country. Then they invited dozens of beautiful women. Some were famous models, some were beauty queens. They were paid massive amounts of money to attend a secret party. They were told to get into the back of a dark truck. They had no idea they were going to a state prison. And that's when everything changed. The trucks drove up the dark mountain road. They reached the military checkpoint on the outer ring.
The real soldiers standing outside were completely terrified of Pablo. They knew he had unlimited money. They knew he was absolutely ruthless. Pablo's men offered the soldiers simple choices. They handed them thick stacks of $100 bills. It was more money than a soldier made in 10 years. If they took the money, they just had to look the other way. If they refused the money, their families down in the city would be in immediate danger. The choice was very easy. The soldiers took the heavy cash. They looked down at the mud. The heavy trucks rolled right past the military. They drove through the giant steel gates. They parked inside the luxury prison. The back doors opened. The wild party instantly began. But that was only the beginning. Inside La Catedral, the rules of the real world completely disappeared. The expensive alcohol flowed like a river. Loud music echoed off the cold mountain walls. Pablo and his men danced with the beautiful women. They smoked expensive cigars. They ate massive plates of fresh seafood. They set up giant casino tables. They gambled away millions of dollars in a single night. Famous professional football players came to visit. They played intense matches on Pablo's perfect grass field. The parties lasted for 3 full days. They started on Friday night and ended on Sunday morning. The women and the musicians slept in luxury guest rooms inside the prison. They were treated like absolute royalty. On Sunday afternoon, everyone quietly got back into the dark trucks. The trucks drove back down the steep mountain. The military guards looked the other way again. It was the perfect system. It was the ultimate insult to the government. Pablo was serving time, but he was having the best time of his entire life. He thought he was invincible. He thought the fun would never end. What happened next shocked everyone. Greed is a very poisonous thing. It ruins everything it touches. While Pablo was dancing and drinking on the mountain, his business was still running in the city. His top partners were making millions of dollars selling illegal products. They were supposed to send Pablo his exact share of the money. But Pablo had too much time to think in his hot tub. His mind started playing dark tricks on him. He became incredibly paranoid. He slowly convinced himself that his closest partners were stealing from him. He felt deeply betrayed. His giant ego was completely bruised. No one was allowed to steal from the king. He decided he had to handle the problem. He knew this could destroy everything, but he simply did not care. He invited his two top partners to the prison. He told them they were coming for a friendly meeting. The men drove up the dark road. They passed the bribed soldiers. They walked into the luxury compound. But there was no wild party waiting for them. There was no loud music or cold alcohol. Pablo was waiting in a quiet, dark room. He was absolutely furious. And that's when everything changed. He accused the men of stealing his money. The men looked him in the eyes and completely denied it. They swore they were loyal. They begged him to believe them. But Pablo did not listen. He ordered his fake guards to grab them. Inside the walls of a supposed maximum security government prison, the boss tied up his own friends. He ordered his men to heavily torture them. The awful screams echoed across the empty football field. When he finally had enough, he gave the ultimate order. He had the men brutally killed. Their bodies were burned in a hot fire. Their ashes were secretly buried in the dirt right on the prison grounds. He washed his hands. He went back to his luxury bedroom. He thought the problem was fully solved. He thought his dark secret was totally safe behind his thick walls. But he had no idea what was coming. You cannot hide a brutal crime like that forever. The families of the dead men started asking loud questions. The scary rumors slowly leaked down the mountain. They spread through the city streets. Eventually, the horrific stories reached the top leaders of the government. The president of the country was totally humiliated. The public was outraged. The entire country realized the prison was a massive joke. The news completely exposed the trucks full of alcohol. They exposed the beautiful women. They exposed the massive parties. And now they exposed a double murder. The peace deal was completely dead. The government looked incredibly weak and foolish. The president made a very hard decision. He ordered the real military to go up the mountain. He ordered them to take back the prison. He told them to pull Pablo out of his hot tub and put him in a real, dark, dirty military jail. There was no way back now. The tension was absolutely electric. Hundreds of elite soldiers loaded into heavy transport trucks. They gripped their black rifles. They drove fast up the winding mountain road. The wet fog was extremely thick. They reached the front gates. This time, they did not look away. This time, they did not take bribes. They smashed through the heavy steel doors. They ran onto the beautiful grass field. They kicked down the heavy wooden doors of the luxury mansion. They yelled loud commands. They pointed their big guns at the fake guards. They rushed straight to the master bedroom. They expected to find the king in his giant circular bed. They expected a massive bloody shootout. They kicked the bedroom door wide open, but the room was completely empty. Pablo was gone. Before the army even arrived, someone inside the government warned him. Pablo had grabbed a heavy bag of cash. He walked to the back fence of the prison. He kicked out a loose brick wall that he secretly built years ago.
He crawled out into the dark, freezing woods. He escaped quietly into the thick fog. The massive raid was a total failure. The trucks full of women were gone. The music was gone, and the most dangerous man in the world was completely free again. But his luxury life was officially over. Pablo spent the next 16 months running for his life. He lost his massive mansion. He lost his endless parties. He was forced to hide in dirty small houses in the city. He could not go outside. He was hunted by the police, the military, and his angry enemies. In December of 1993, the police finally tracked his phone signal. They surrounded a small brick house in a quiet neighborhood. Pablo tried to escape by running across the orange clay roof. Loud gunshots filled the air. Pablo fell hard. He died right there on the dirty roof. He was completely alone. He had no music, no alcohol, and no power left. Today, La Catedral sits completely broken on the cold mountain. The beautiful waterfall is dry. The giant rooms are totally empty. The wild parties are just a dark, strange memory. He had the perfect setup. He built a safe paradise where he could do whatever he wanted, but he could not control his own dark mind. His massive greed and dangerous ego destroyed the very walls he built to protect himself. In the end, power always comes with a price. If you liked this video, make sure you subscribe and follow the channel. We upload new videos every single day. And trust me, the next story is even more intense, more surprising, and something you definitely don't want to miss. I'll see you in the next one.